This is a very surprising book selection by Mr. Henry himself. I did not see this one coming from you at
Yeah, it was
all.
a bad slap, I'll admit.
Yeah, I did not see this. I thought I thought for someone who said they were done talking about COVID and quarantine, I did not see this coming. But nonetheless, this book selection is by Mr. Henry, Until Proven Safe: The History and Future of Quarantine, co-written by Geoff, Manaugh, and Nicola Twilley. Hopefully, I'm not butchering this individual last name,
You
but
probably
Probably
are.
are.
I probably am. You know, he could send you a bill, a defamation suit, or what have you. You know, for that butchering of that name. Mr. Henry, give us a quick synopsis before we get into these questions.
Basically gives a history of quarantine and its effectiveness or lack thereof.
All right. All right. So let's get
into.
into.
Let me just say, I'm glad that I surprised you all. I just didn't want to do 2 fiction books back to back because that's where the fuck I was leading. So then y'all know.
Hey, you could pick whatever book you want. I was surprised just based on obviously the number of conversations we had surrounding COVID and quarantine currently that you would have just stayed cleared away from a topic like this. So it makes for more interesting conversation due to our current situation and this new variant that is unfortunately running wild across America that is shutting down facilities and what have you. So, all right, let's get into the question.
I don't know if it would have made a big difference, only because one, suicide rates, most of the suicides I was hearing about with COVID were really the depression of the shutdowns, not so much people that were infected with COVID. It was more
Correct.
just the shutdown, people just depressed, being, isolated and away from other people, or people that were seeing it from the front line, like the doctor that like killed herself,
The nurses,
after seeing so many people, dying, and there was nothing they could do to help, or it was just a depressing scene.
Yeah. I co-sign to that. I think all of these things from kids suffering depression and suicide, and you talk about drug abuses and stuff like that. These are just side effects of a quarantine shutdown. And I think this book highlights that is, unfortunately, there's always going to be ebbs and flows as to how a quarantine is handled. There's no right way. What I like about this book is just like, there's really no real right way of how to prevent all of these situational things to occur while dealing with a virus at hand. You're just going to have these situations. You're just going to have, unfortunately, people, and I think this ties into Schubert's question, honestly. Is it right to sacrifice the few for many? I think you're just going to have situational things where some people are just going to have to endure these things to prevent that a widespread contagious disease. It is what it is. I don't think they could have done anything differently.
Yeah, see, maybe I misunderstood the meaning of not the meaning, but the purpose of the lazaretto. They only put people who was sick in there, but they put people who were like suspected.
Yes, it was sick because it was to separate those who were sick
or those that were suspected to be sick.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I got a little thrown off when they started talking about the fact that it was like a political ploy and they was putting niggas in there who may not have necessarily been.
Well, but what this book really gets at though was the abuses of quarantine that did come from that, where there was political, obviously, incentives to basically identify people who you could rob or make an example of by putting them in quarantine. And I think that's where quarantine gets the bad rep because of the political abuses that come from it.
Got it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm still gonna take a motherfucking stab at it. I don't know. I think if niggas kind of like made it less of like a jail, the whole idea of the Lazaretto, and make that shit a little bit more inviting, I think that shit would probably be maybe would have worked out a little bit better. I don't know. I will say that just reading through it, and maybe I'm missing. Y'all can correct me if I didn't, but it didn't really seem like the rest of the population was like looking at Lazarettos in like a negative light. Like it was just like these niggas was just, they all quarantined, but I know that they said they put it in like the middle of the town so that niggas could still visit them. Like, y'all felt like these dudes was getting like I don't know, like you think about how deadly we think a virus is, and I don't want niggas next to me or whatever. I don't know if I kind of got that vibe with these dudes, even though they was being put in a lazaretto.
Well, the book did go into expressing how, one, if someone was even suspected of being sick or had the potential of being sick, people would separate themselves, including family, and even leave that person to not be associated with them at all. So no one thinks like, well, isn't that your uncle? No, I don't know that motherfucker.
Yeah. They harped on that when they were talking about the Ebola too in chapter 4.
And when they had lazarettos, in places like Staten Island, people not only wanted those things shut down, they burned them down.
Yeah.
They burned them down. They didn't want it in their neighborhood. They didn't want it in their community, nowhere near them.
Yeah.
That's why they started making islands and ships and everything, to make even more secluded from society.
Gotcha.
Yeah. All right. Next up, Black Zeus. We use a multitude of forms of isolation in our society to safeguard and manage threats to it. Medical quarantine, criminal imprisonment, employment, school suspension, bad credit. Despite the utility of these tactics, they have been abused by people, organizations, government, causing a few unnecessary anguish and or loss of life. With that being said, he posed 2 questions. Why is medical quarantine the most taboo form of isolation? Let's tackle that first question. And funny enough, Black Zeus, when you posed that question, I was about to send something similar to that. So like in chapter 4, when there was a statement by Dr. Martin Serratine, who was quoted saying that quarantine has been used as a political tool and overreaction to fear, which has given quarantine a bad name. And he talks about the multitude of ways, like for instance, like the recent Brazilian Olympic Games, how we were going to economically impact the Brazilian economy by not having the Brazilian Games because of the Zika virus. And when in all actuality, we never even really took the time to really, look into those numbers and to see exactly who were impacted and whether or not it was such a severe situation for us to not continue the games. I think the reason why medical quarantine gets such a bad taboo is the ill-informed way of which we collect data about viruses. I think we do things in such a manner that in hindsight, once it's all said and done, we just like, we went about it wrong. And I think what Dr. Martin Serratine is saying is just like, quarantine has its place, but we do a disservice to quarantine because we go about practicing it the wrong way, and a lot of time it's due to a lot of political incentives. Hence why, when we talked about the last book, Kelvin's book selection, Think Again by Adam Grant, there was too much politics, preachers, and I forgot the other politics, preachers, and
lawyers, scientists.
There was another P word, and there wasn't enough prosecutors. Yes, prosecutors. And there's not enough scientists in it. And I think a lot of times, and this is my contentions with COVID now, I think we've allowed too many politics to be involved in the space of science where we don't let the science be the science. And I think that's why it's such a taboo thing. Taboo, because it's just like we've seen how people use the science and medical ways of isolation to cure people for political agendas and stuff like that. And people see that, and history has shown for that to be proven.
Yeah, I'd say that the shit is taboo because it comes with a negative connotation. That's part of it. Like, there's no positive. I mean, even though obviously, you want the outcome you want it to yield a positive outcome in the sense of, niggas is safe and not sick. But as soon as you see, like, oh, well, so-and-so is sick, we got to go into quarantine, like, then it makes other niggas not want to be around them. And then, I don't know, I didn't really understand the whole concept until really COVID started. Just like that idea of people feeling like they're being controlled. So, like, I think that has even more so to do with the lack of, people feeling like, oh, well, I'm being controlled, more so than even the negative connotation that comes along with it. So, like, in what situation are we calling for a positive reason? You know what I mean? That's got to be the biggest one for me.
Yeah, like not leading with the science is a lot of times. Go ahead, Black. It's my bad.
So Kelvin actually kind of hit my point about this. If you notice the other examples I use, criminal imprisonment, job suspension, school suspension, bad credit, things of that sort. We all understand that those are the forms of isolation that happen due to our conduct, our behavior, our choices that we've made voluntarily. When we get sick, we don't voluntarily get sick. And, it seems unfair that something that happened to us or something that we didn't have a choice in now has taken away or stripped away our choice or our freedoms, and we're being controlled, and isolated or almost punished for something that was out of our control. So I think that's one of the main reasons why people get really jacked up with the idea of quarantine, especially if you're talking about quarantine someone to some of these lazarettos, where it's if not a prison, maybe worse than a prison. When you hear about vermin, you hear about filth, and maybe you weren't sick, because here's the other thing: the fact of you can't, in some cases it's a suspicion that you're sick, and now that you're in a place of filth and vermin and sick people, guess what ends up happening? You end up being sick. So versus like, if you go to prison and you didn't commit the crime, you're not affected by the crime. If you if you got suspended from a job or whatever cases, you might have a chance to defend yourself and say, explain your actions or whatever, but when it comes to this idea of quarantine, medical quarantine, as the book says, until proven safe. This young lady who was a nurse and went abroad to help with Ebola, got falsely accused with no evidence. And even when weeks and months later, as she has been cleared and said, hey, she's not sick, people are still sending her death notices and threats, and her and her husband had to move and everything. So it's just it's kind of it's the insanity of it all. So it's not even a matter of science or not science. It's really a matter of your autonomy being stripped from you by
I think it is that, because because when Dr. Martin Sorgen, he talks about that, he talked about the situation in New Jersey and Governor Chris Christie, was demanding the quarantine of the 2 doctors after, doing, wonderful humanitarian work out in Africa to help curtail the Ebola virus. I think one of the biggest disservice that I've seen is the improper way the media has provided this information. And it wasn't science led. It wasn't this understanding of allowing people to truly understand how these viruses are working and what are the precautionary measures that are taken. So when people hear Ebola and people see Ebola numbers and people understand the fatality rate and stuff like that, and it's fear, because like I said, that second part of Dr. Martin Florentine's statement is, quarantine has gotten a bad rep due to people's fear. But how is that fear driven? It's based on the messaging the political messaging that's put out there. I look at COVID, every fucking day is COVID cases. I get it. You want to report the COVID cases, but let's be very objective about, survivability rates too. Let's be very objective about who are these people who are dying. If there are deaths to be had, who are these people who are dying from the viruses? Let's be very clear and objective about the circumstances around all of that. And I think a lot of times when we don't get the full spectrum of a situation, you get fear. You get essentially the fear aspects that are making medical taboo such a thing. And this is why when said doctor came back and she was like, look, I don't have it, people wasn't trying to hear it because the public wasn't properly informed at all. It wasn't science led.
Is properly informed. Even when the public is properly informed, the public still comes up with its own decisions. That's how we get all our conspiracy theories.
But when has the public been actually informed? Truly informed? Like for instance, last night we were hanging out, and I'm deviating a little bit to try to bring this back home. Last night we were hanging out with Jason, right? Jason came back to my crib, and we were talking about the Kyle Rittenhouse case, and he didn't realize that Kyle Rittenhouse didn't cross, state lines with a gun. He presumed that Kyle Rittenhouse crossed state lines with a gun. How did he get that? The media, because the public media did not do a great service in providing that information. And I bring that back to when we talk about viruses.
But hold on, you got the information, right?
I got the information right because I had to do my because I had to do my due diligence. I am someone who's inquisitive enough to want to understand. But if you got a lot of people who don't have the time, they're relying on the public media, our public politicians. And if they're doing a disservice in regards of informing you had people like Maxine Waters calling Kyle Rittenhouse. I mean, Joe Biden associating Kyle Rittenhouse as a white supremacist.
Okay.
The Democratic nominee at the time running for the presidential seat calling Kyle Rittenhouse a white supremacist before all the evidence is being presented. That's politically driven. And what I'm saying is, but that's what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, if you're someone who's not inquisitive to do the digging and do the research, and you're relying on these quote unquote public media services, you will be ill-informed as to what the Ebola virus is, what it entails, how it is transferred, what's the survivability rate, what is the precautionary quarantine measures that need to be had. You're just going to go by the fear titles and the fear talking points that are out there.
Bro, that's no different with anything. Like, I can tell somebody something that I want them to believe, and they're gonna believe me if they're not gonna fucking get the information themselves. So like,
exactly.
Even if you have niggas who's in the government and them niggas is skewed, like some of them feel like, okay, well, we shouldn't be treating COVID this way. Some of them feel like we should be treating it this way. Niggas come up with a vote and majority says, okay, this is the message that we're gonna be sending out. Like, that's the message that they're gonna spew. So now
but then that message is not rooted in all of the information. That's the problem.
No, but it may be it's rooted in the information that they have. That's like, okay, well, this is, yeah, we may see that only these people over here are dying, but we want everybody to take the shot so that these people over here aren't dying. So now we're going to say that everybody can die from this shit. So now you do have to dig deeper and figure that shit out on your own. And if you don't do it to formulate your own opinion, I mean, that's on you.
But that's not on you, because then the problem, because now go back to the question in regards to how, quarantine is like a medical taboo, is because there are a swath of people out here who don't have the time to understand everything and anything, and they're relying on certain individuals or certain entities to provide honest information. And if the information is not honest, then there's that fear factor that's going to come in. If all you do is say, well, this is extremely bad, and you don't back it up with anything, and this is the message that you drive 24/7, then don't be surprised that people are going to be fearful, and people are going to say, like, look, I don't care what you say. This shit is deadly. We got to do all these extraordinary things.
So, despite the fact that all the evidence we have of 9/11, buildings going down, planes, everything, people's deaths, this, that, and the other, despite the evidence that we have of Sandy Hook, school shootings, children dying from, a mass shooter going in and shooting up a school, and the elementary school full of kids, people still are calling the families and saying you're staging it. People are still saying that 9/11 really didn't happen and that it was all an illusion.
What's the percentage of those people saying that?
But the whole thing is that it's not a matter of the percentage of people. The matter is that once people get that whisper in their head, for some reason, I don't know what it is, but that whisper is louder than every expert and every resource that there is. So for instance, look at the woke movement, right? Look what's going on. Black people can't be racist because they don't have systemic power. That's a crock of shit. I've heard so many people say this, and I'm just like, I've heard so many people say this, and I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? And they're like, if the meaning of racism means that you have to have systemic power. I have yet to find one fucking dictionary that says this shit. They're probably trying to change it now.
No, they've added that in the definition.
But that's the thing. That was never the definition.
That was never the definition, but they're
changing it now because, people said it, no one challenged it, and now it's becoming the standard. Even though the rationality behind it is fucking insane. The rationality
I get that.
Is fucking insane. So the whole thing is to say that society, a bunch of people, are going to make sane choices based on the information that they're given. I'm sorry, bro. You giving people way too much credit.
I'm not saying that they will make the same judgment.
People are stupid.
I'm not saying that people will make. Everyone is going to make sound decisions with all of the proper medical information given to them. I'm saying is, when has all of the proper medical information has ever been given to the people? It hasn't been. There hasn't been. Dr. Fauci in the 80s was going around telling people you could contract HIV by hugging people. That was him in the 80s. Nothing. It was fear driven. And what I'm saying is, when Dr. Martin Serentine talks about how quarantine is getting such a bad rep and how is it medically taboo, is because of the abuses that is often done by politics all the time. And it's just like,
I don't know if it's done by politics, because here's the thing. If you know anything about science, every science at the beginning of it has its fuck ups. Every science has its fuck ups. Every science, has its misconceptions, its misunderstanding. And then as
it's a
we find out more science,
hypothesis.
and then
Yeah.
we correct as we go along.
And it's open for scrutiny. But the problem is when certain entities get their hands on a certain narrative about a virus, they don't let go of that narrative. They're no longer saying, okay, we thought this one way, we enacted policies based on this, but now that we see that this virus is not necessarily conducive of this, we're going to be more flexible. They don't do that. They don't relinquish the power that they once achieved. Like,
and I hear you on that. I'm not.
But that's why quarantine has become such a hot topic, in which I kind of started to enjoy this book, is because the shit is not rooted in the science. Like, all through chapters 2, 3, and 4, you kind of see that. Like, yes, people within the medical industry are trying to find ways to address the proper ways of quarantining people to prevent the masses of people from being ill. But an aspect as to why quarantine hasn't been successful is the political intrusion of certain individual who sees an opportunity. And then I think for the masses of people, they're not properly informed. Again, when I talk to people about COVID numbers, and I talk to people about COVID cases, and I talk about, aspects of what we're seeing as mandates, and I'm like, you don't see how some of these shits just don't logically make any sense? And they're just like, no, like, it's just like, Dr. Fauci is not the only fucking doctor out here. He's not the only scientist that's out here who's trying to have a voice. But when every day when I turn on Bloomberg, CNBC, ABC, NBC, ABC, CNN, MSNBC, cases, blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, it's nothing but fear. So now quarantine has become such a thing that it becomes is a hot topic discussion. It becomes this sort of like losing, to Kelvin pointed out, it feels for those people who are untrusting of the science is because they see that quarantine has become this measure of control of their life. And it's all due to the fact that, historically speaking, as this book pointed out, there's been some unfortunate events in which it has become that way. So now those people, unfortunately, when there is issues of the virus being needed to be taken seriously, people are just going to always have that level of skepticism, because it's just like, we've seen this before, and we've seen how certain governments have real unnecessary power to control a supposed deadly virus.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see where you come from. I just don't see it that clearly, or I don't agree with it that clearly, because I know the fact of science is not something that you easily just discover. People want answers. Government has to keep things in order, and it's going to be sloppy. It's not going to be this perfect cake that you're describing right now. It's going to be a sloppy, mess.
I don't think it's going to be
hold on. The thing is just that we expect some sort of perfection in a world of chaos. Like, COVID, is not the first, virus X, as the history has shown us, smallpox, the Black Plague, polio, so forth and so on, and the fact that we live in a society that at least gives us the medical science to come up with vaccines and have medical research, the whole thing is, the truth is, you're going to fuck up quite a few times before you get it right.
Yeah, you're right in that regard. Mm-hmm.
That's just the facts. That's it. There's no way around that shit.
And we have to be fluid with that. We have to be, willing to bend with that too.
But the problem is, society doesn't understand that, because most of society are a bunch of idiots that don't, understand science. Period. They think science is a definite, like, going up and picking up your Webster dictionary and finding out what the meaning of the word, game is. That is going to be definite no matter what, whatever dictionary you pick it up in. When it's like, no, it's actually something that's constantly evolving and that you're never really going to get a full grasp on, something that we're never going to get a 100% full grasp on. We're constantly evolving and learning more and more and more.
That idea, like, being fluid, like when niggas is fluid with the virus and shit, they niggas say, oh, well, first it was 6 feet, now it's 3 feet. Then it can live on services. Now it can't live on services. So it's like, niggas is being fluid and motherfuckers is like, well, what is it? Like, I can't even take this shit serious.
Well, I would say this.
You can't have it both ways.
No.
So now, like, okay, if we admit that we made a mistake and now it's not like this, the niggas gonna be like, oh, well, the virus isn't even that serious in the beginning.
But and I want to tackle both of you. The first thing, Chewy, I'm not asking for perfection. I'm asking for clear out transparency. And I'm asking for all of the science community to have a voice in this discussion. That's me. I'm not trying to hear just fucking Dr. Fauci, and I'm not just trying to hear fucking the CDC, because both Fauci and the CDC have has their questionable decision makings, despite other scientists proving them wrong regarding said science or said hypothesis that they've been putting out there. Now, in regards to like your issue, Kelvin, in regards of fluidity, and yes, it draws a level of skepticism. That's true, and that's inevitable. But I think what it is I don't have a perfect solution for this. It's this fine line of, if when you present the science and then you make corrections along the way, I think is this okay, the mandates and the restrictions that often doesn't necessarily change rapidly enough with that said science changing. Meaning we will keep a restriction and a mandate long enough. Like the other day, right? And I think I shared this with you last night. Makes no fucking sense to me. Every day, every afternoon, I walk my dog for lunch, and then I see the kids. There's a nearby school. I see the kids eating outside to have lunch. I get the reasoning for that, but then I'm like, but these kids are then doing other activities that completely negates the science in all of which you're trying to do. They're still going to engage in activity. Like, we're not truly quarantining the way the medical community has defined quarantining. Like, we're not. True. So it's just exactly.
You're asking us to circumvent human behavior. At the end of the day, is the fact that even if we are scientific and completely objective about it, human behavior is not scientific or objective. Human behavior is erratic, chaotic, insanity. All right. It does not act logically and clearly.
Yeah,
it acts emotionally.
And the thing is, I think, and because of that, and I definitely acknowledge what you're saying, I think because of that is when the restrictions and mandates don't change it with the changes in science. I think that's where the issue comes in. It's just like, all right, we had these harsh, strict restrictions before based on what was said before. The science is loosening up their stance, but we still have these harsh restrictions in place. Touching on this, is it right to sacrifice the few for the many? What do you elaborate on that question though?
So
like the few, meaning the few that are not sick.
So the whole thing is that when you look at the system in the past, where basically someone was thought to be sick or whatever the case is, or let's say this young lady who had this young lady who Christy had, in a tent at UMDMJ.
Yeah, for like 21 days. Yeah.
Now the whole thing is that they erred on the chance of damn it, I can't get the words out. But basically, they erred on the part of caution.
Yeah.
Because the whole thing is, let's say she was sick. and then she had spread that to other people. I would prefer that to find out we're wrong after 21 days, then that she's not sick, then find out we're wrong, she is sick after a week.
Yeah.
The cost is too high. We're seeing that with COVID now.
To be honest, I agreed with the quarantine. I know Dr. Martin Serentine, he disagreed with it. There were some doctors that disagreed with it, and they were trying to prove that she was not a carrier. But I'm with you. I just think that because the public is not fully informed, and even some of the people in the science community might not truly be fully informed as to how transmittable that disease is, because you can always have some weird ass outlier. I agree with you. I think that sort of sacrifice needed to be had, because you just don't want an outbreak of that, especially when the fatality rate of Ebola is enormous. You're talking about 40-50% fatality. Like, you could fucking die from this shit if you contract it. So I didn't see Christie's wrongdoing in doing that. It wasn't truly rooted in all of the science that was presented. Maybe not, but like, with such a high,
didn't have enough science at the time, just like COVID. So they're trying to err on the side of caution.
I think that for me, knowing how fatal Ebola, in regards of percentage, in regards of Ebola was, like, look, I wouldn't want to take that fucking risk. So yes, that sacrifice needed to be made.
Yeah, I feel like sacrifice the one for many. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't really feel like, I don't know whether I can say that we're really fucking doing this shit with COVID, though. Like, it seems like we're trying to save everybody. And I mean, I get it's not one person that you'd be sacrificing, but like, I don't know. I mean, just to even to not get back into the whole debate that we was having about the previous question. Like, there's no way that we can say, okay, well, only certain people need to get vaccinated and other people don't. But it definitely seems like in this situation, we're just looking out for the immunocompromised and the elderly. So, like, I guess the youth, and the healthy are being sacrificed in the sense of, our freedoms aren't fucking what we feel like they should be right now. Because a lot of us feels like this shit doesn't really pertain to us. I mean, I guess it's the same, because with that chick here, you have to sacrifice her so more niggas wouldn't die. And, going along with the same fucking thinking, I guess it's the same way here. So I'm with it. And I think part of it is just like instilled in me as an American, because I feel like a lot of motherfuckers in other countries don't feel the same fucking way. It's just like, every man for themselves. So I say yes.
In this situation with COVID, though, like, who we would have had, and Schubert, you could elaborate for me, who would we have sacrificed for the many? Would we, should we have taken like what Kelvin has pointed out, the people who are immune compromised and the elderly, and sacrifice them? Like in your scenario of COVID, who is the few and who's the many?
See, the thing with COVID, it wasn't so much of, if we had acted on this early, when it was a threat back in 2019, before it became to the point where we had to shut things down in 2020, there would have been a few people we would have the quarantine, lock off, whatever the case is, so that they wouldn't travel around and continue to spread. But we didn't take it seriously then. We didn't take it seriously then. Had we taken it seriously then, there would have been there would have been a much smaller death toll. There would have been, a lot less damage done. It could have been a lot more controlled.
I agree.
There might have been quite a few lives, sacrificed in that time, but there would have been a lot more lives saved.
But what was so irresponsible about our media and our political landscape, and is even with the new variant that's out here with the Omicron, where we immediately ceased travel to South Africa. You had people politically saying this seems like an overreach. This seems relatively racist and stuff like that. And I'm like, this is the same talking points you did to Trump when Trump initially wanted to cease travel to China. And I think that if we had done this, I just think that this is why I do agree with you. I think, to be honest, human beings are overly emotional, and I don't think we would have ever gotten this right to begin with. It's because any action would have been the wrong action for some group of people, and that's the unfortunate part about it.
So in the movies, you'll see movies like Private Ryan or something like that, where you'll see they'll go back and they're like, oh, we left Bradley behind, we gotta go back and go get him. That's in the movies, bro.
Yeah,
that's not what really happens in the military. No one's sacrificing a whole unit. A whole platoon or unit for one guy.
Yeah.
All right.
I remember you saying this months ago. Yeah.
That's just not reality.
Yeah.
That's not reality. There've been guys that have used the dead corpse of their
as a body shield
of their body of their battle buddy as a body shield.
Yeah.
All right. When shit get real, you gotta make choices.
Yeah.
All right. If you ever seen the movie Pearl Harbor, there's a scene in there where the ship takes a hit, really bad hit, and they're taking on water. And I don't know if you've ever been in a Navy ship, but them motherfuckers are tight. And the ship is taking on water. And the captain of the ship tells one of the guys to seal the hatches. And the guys say, the sailors say, sir, we have men down there. He said, I said seal those hatches. He had to make that call where he had to sacrifice those men, in order to save the ship and save everyone else on it.
Yeah.
Imagine a guy who had to see these guys climbing up that ladder to try to, get to safety, and he had to close that hatch and seal them in to drown to their death. Those are real choices that have to be made in order to save, to save the majority. If we act on emotion, which we typically do in our society, it always ends up being to our detriment in the long run.
Yeah.
It might feel good in the moment, much like, we're talking about the nuclear family thing. It might feel good in the moment, but in the long run, families are broken up, homes are broken up, crime goes up, poverty ensues, dysfunction ensues, because in the moment you were acting out of emotion instead of out of necessity, out of being pragmatic, logical.
Yeah. I have one question for you, Kel, before you drop off. Being that viruses have, and I didn't put this in text form, so please pay attention. Being that viruses have become is going to be a trend now. I don't think we're ever going to not see, not just with COVID, but any new virus now that might emerge. Should we do away, this is for you guys, should we do away with leisure travel to foreign places? As a society, should we just do away with that?
Yes.
No.
We got different opinion. Let's get at it.
Leisure travel? No. Because...
Leisure travel, yeah. Should we do away with leisure travel?
No, I don't think so, because it's not gonna stop niggas from doing that shit. I mean,
that's why we do away with it. If we do away with leisure travel, you can't do it.
Like, yo, niggas ain't allowed to travel to Cuba, but motherfuckers still find a loophole to do that shit. So, like, should we stop it altogether?
Yes.
When you think about how many years the fucking world has been around and compare that to how many viruses we've had, no. Like, that shit don't even add up. Should we do away with it until this shit calms down? No. Because I don't feel like America is going to be the first, like, if we stop doing leisure travel, America wouldn't be the first motherfuckers to fix this damn coronavirus issue. It ain't like the main reason why we have, well, shit, I guess you could say the main reason why we have corona is because niggas
I was going to say, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Hold up.
But think about, let's say that fucking coronavirus, same scenario, but niggas only travel over there for business or for humanitarian reasons. Nigga, the virus still would have been here. Every nigga who was in whatever country was infected wasn't out there on vacation.
But you could.
But could it be easily controlled?
I was about to say that.
If you know people that are traveling for business, people that are traveling, because that makes up a very small majority of people that travel international, business and humanitarian. So wouldn't it be easier to control and know exactly who is flying out on business and humanitarian reasons? So instead of having thousands flying out, you have 100.
But that shit is still, I mean,
we're
talking about moving forward now, right? Because
moving forward.
Because even if you look at the way that the shit was now, like, by the time niggas figured that shit, this was here already. So it ain't like, niggas was on some shit like.
But once again, when it was here, it was controllable. It'd be controllable if you have a limited amount of people that are traveling internationally. You can contact trace a lot easier with just, a handful of people versus thousands of people coming from every direction.
Yeah, I don't think that shit is realistic though, man.
You don't think it's realistic only because you can't imagine not traveling leisurely. But real talk, when people travel leisurely, what the fuck are they doing? Going to a beach? America has beaches. Going to eat food? America has food. What the fuck are you doing internationally that you can't do here in America?
We're fucking isolating ourselves from the rest of the world, and now we're all living in our own individual worlds. Like,
how often do you go abroad?
But think about leisure. Okay, so now I'm a fucking, like, my homeboy who's Dominican. This nigga's here, most of his family's still back home. Okay, so now I can't go back and visit them. They can't never see my family.
Sacrifices have to be made. Sacrifices have to be made.
Like, if you're trying to be upward mobile and move to a different location, that's different from you just zipping and running various countries.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I currently live in America and my aunt wants to come visit me. Or I want to go back home and visit them. That's just leisure. And then you still run into
then your stay must be longer then. Like, if you're going to visit a country, then you can't do 3 days. You're here one way. Because I saw shockingly, you might be shocked, Kel. I agree with Zeus on this. Like, me personally, I think as I'm listening to these chapters and I'm thinking about viruses and how they're transmitted and the issue, I think it's because people are leisurely traveling. Like, the only thing that needs to really happen is transportation of goods, which we should be manufacturing ourselves, and business. And what kind of business, really? I think with this day and age of technology, what business can't be done online? But I agree with Black Zeus. I think leisure is the problem because you can't account for that individual once they hit your land.
And let's say you're going to do leisure. Let's do it the way. So last year, every year I send my mom to Dominica. All right, not Dominican Republic, Dominica.
I know. We got
for winter, right? Typically, it's like a $600 ticket. and she goes to stay with some friends out there, this, that, and the other, blase, blase. She stays for the winter for about 3 or 4 months. Right now, because Dominica is not playing those games, okay?
Is this nigga gonna say something?
I think he
Can you hear me?
it. No, you froze for a minute.
Sorry.
But Dominica's not playing no games. Oh,
this is Dominica's not playing the game.
When I sign off, reason and shit.
All right. So listen.
Yo, I'm about to go, bro.
Can you hear me?
One more time. If
Can you hear me?
Freeze one more time, I can hear you now. If you freeze one more time, Kel's gonna drop off.
Y'all
niggas got me. Y'all niggas got me till you're for 5 more minutes. I'm about to be at the grocery store.
All right, listen. So the whole thing is Dominica wants you to take a COVID test at least 48 hours. I mean, at most 48 hours before you get on the plane. A negative COVID test has to be produced 48 hours before you get on the plane. Once you get off the plane, you must have a pre-scheduled taxi to take you from the airport to a specific quarantine hotel for 2 weeks. And after you get there for 2 weeks, you must take another COVID test. And all of that must come out of your pocket, out of your own pocket. So we had to pay for a 2-week stay at this quarantine hotel. We had to pay for the cab, the specific cab, because not every cab has a license to do this because it's like, I guess, sealed off or whatever the hell it is. And you have to take the COVID test. If that's the way you want to do leisure, fine, so be it. That's the way you'll have to go in and out of the country. If you're okay with that,
be honest, I think
then travel all you want. Because Dominica, because they did that, only had 25 cases of COVID throughout this whole entire thing.
Honestly, I think the quarantine should be longer. If you're coming from any location, I think it should be a month. I think it should be a solid month where you're in that area, or even coming back home. I think you can't even go back to your residence of home. I think you should go to an actual facility where you're quarantined for X amount of days.
I don't know if it's a month. A month might be a bit much, but
you're right. We
understandable.
2 weeks. Okay, I stick with the 2 weeks. But I even think when
you got something, it will manifest in 2 weeks.
Yeah, like I think even coming back home, you shouldn't have that luxury of going to the airport and going straight to your house like that.
So y'all don't feel like niggas should be in America, a fucking place that has however many different cultures and nationalities and whatever. You don't think that we should travel to those places to understand?
If you want to travel to those places, then the restrictions must be made so. The same way Dominica has those restrictions.
I agree.
Fine.
And we should have been doing that.
But you're gonna have to go through this now.
Yes,
it's an extra process you'll have to go through.
And I think COVID, like, shockingly, because I was having this conversation with my sister-in-law, and she was like, I'm shocked you had this stance based on everything you said. I was like, I take COVID seriously. Like, just despite my questioning of COVID, the numbers and stuff, I do, and it's opened my eyes to viruses and how COVID, this is not going to be the only virus. And I think the way we leisurely travel across this globe, we should have had much stricter stances regarding how people come in and out of nations.
Okay, so now here's my question. For this proposal and shit, right? Because now clearly a lot less people are going to travel more frequently because now you're talking about upping the expenses. So now how do you make up money that's going to be lost in those third world countries that rely heavily on tourism?
Not our problem.
I was about to say the same. That's where you sacrifice the few for the many. It's like
not our problem.
It
bro.
is.
So you killing up.
When we're talking about the health crisis,
nobody is traveling so they can help third world countries. If anything, people are traveling to take advantage of third world countries because let me get this straight. If I go to Hawaii, it's going to cost me $7,000 for this vacation. But if I go to Dominican Republic, it costs me $2,000 and I get my dick sucked. Come on, homie. Come on, don't act like it's a humanitarian thing to travel abroad. Miss me with the bullshit.
Whatever
away from
now
the
Kel
fact
frozen.
Now
that
Kel
you are
frozen.
still.
Yeah, Kel, you got frozen. Go ahead, brother. Talk your shit.
That shit. Hold on, let me take my motherfucking Wi-Fi off. That shit still don't take away. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I hear you.
Yeah, you have to take my Wi-Fi off. That shit still don't take away from the fact that you're employing niggas who's working at the resorts.
Look,
So you
Okay,
say, oh,
once again, not
there's
my
merit to
problem.
what you're saying. There's definitely merit to what you're saying. But when we're talking about global health crisis such as COVID is, I think there needs to be, we should have been as a society been smart enough or smarter about how we have random people. Granted, some people say, well, this is why we take all these various shots before we go to other countries. Well, shit, the shit is not really working out, I think, honestly. And I think, it might be a situation like, yeah, it's leisurely, but it's going to be either you have the means to stay out there for a month because you got to spend the first 2 weeks quarantining to enjoy the rest of your trip. So be it. Like, I think
either that or find a place in America to go on vacation.
Exactly. Or
we
go
got beaches, we got mountains, we got.
Yeah, bro. When I explored Arizona, I was like, yo, why did I spend so much time trying to travel abroad when there's all this other shit in America that I can fucking explore? Beautiful spots in America that I can fucking explore. But I think it goes back to Shuba's question. Yes, may those economies be impacted by the lack of tourist dollars? I'm not going to say no to, like, it's not, like, yeah, you're right. It's going to be impacted. But we're talking about
tremendously.
To what degree? Yeah. Okay, but we're talking about people dying from viruses, though. Like,
or look at this. Look at this, Kel. If people were traveling within the United States and they were doing their leisure within the United States, how much money would that bring to the United States? How many people are below the poverty line in the United States? How many people are homeless in the United States?
People do travel here.
You're not even taking care of home. But what if Americans traveled within America? How much money could support America to reduce poverty and homelessness and all the other issues?
The shit would be offset. Schubert, the shit would be offset because we still have a whole bunch of motherfuckers from other countries who come here to visit our country. So the shit would be offset. The shit would be offset.
That's if we allow it.
No, but I'm saying it would be offset. So now all the motherfuckers who come here, all the people who come here, all of the people who come here wouldn't be able to come here. So now all the Americans would travel within America. The Dominican motherfuckers is not gonna be, oh, well, I can't come to America, so now I'm just gonna travel in DR. No, because them niggas ain't traveling to other places. Well, third world countries ain't coming here.
Well, I think, and Schubert, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think Schubert's saying like he's all right. I think he revised his stance. He's not saying, all right, don't travel. I think what he's now saying is you're just gonna have we should have been having harsher restrictions.
That's it.
Like I think you can't zip to DR just for the weekend just to come back. Like I think that's the type of shit that we like as human beings we should have been more cautious of. Like, let's do a weekend getaway in some exotic land somewhere, and now I'm coming back to America. Like I haven't been exposed to foreign bacteria and shit. That's the shit that we should have done away with. Like, all right, you're gonna go to that foreign land, stay there for 2 weeks. When you come back, you're here somewhere quarantining for 2 weeks before you're around a mass amount of people.
Yeah, I'm fine with that shit.
Yeah.
I'm fine with quarantine and coming back. I don't know about quarantine. I mean, maybe now, okay, we do the
quarantine going both directions.
Yes, exactly. Quarantine going both directions.
Countries too.
Yeah.
You can't just protect home and not protect the people that you might be bringing something over to them. I mean, look at the fact that if you look at history, what killed off a lot of the Native Americans, what killed off a lot of the Aztec and
this book touches on that,
Mexicans. How many people came over with SARS and all other types of illness, disease, horses that they brought over. That's what killed off most of the native people of the Americas before the European and colonizers and Spaniards came over and took everything over. It was disease that killed the people.
Yep.
Coming from foreign lands.
Yeah, we do that.
This is nothing new.
We do that shit. Them other countries is gonna suffer because I can't say, like, nigga, I'm not fucking going through all of that shit. I'd rather just travel domestically. And the average,
if that's the ramification, so be it. But I think going forward, when we think about, and to be honest, and I'm on this line of thinking, coronavirus is light work compared to the viruses that I see coming down the pipeline. Yeah. I think the coronavirus is something that has opened my eyes as to how we've been recklessly traveling globally. And I think that we're fortunate enough to have the vaccines available. My concern is I think our bodies are going to eat up these vaccines like it's vitamin fucking water. And essentially when that next virus going to come around the corner, I don't think we're going to be as readily available. Ready for it. And I think it's going to be more deadly. And I think, honestly, we got to look at how we even leisurely travel. I think the quarantine method of, like Shuba said, going to and coming back should have been something that we should have been adopting as a civilization, period. So if your trip to DR should be at least a month. If you're trying to be out there, you might have to schedule some shit for like a month and a half.
I mean, just look at, if you go to Florida, go to the Keys in Florida.
I got
if you
I'm
go
out,
to,
bro.
All
right. Go ahead.
So my point was, if you went to the Florida Keys and go to like Key West specifically, you'll see that they have an overwhelming iguana population. That happened because one motherfucker brought an iguana to Key West many years ago.
Invasive species.
And those motherfuckers took over.
Yeah.
That's the same fucking thing.
It's the same thing.
It's the same fucking thing.
The invasive species shit. Like, there's a fucking butterfly or some shit that fucking wreaked havoc this past summer. It still is to some regards. And it's foreign. I think it's from Canada and stuff like that. And it's that sort of thing. Like, yeah, I take that stance, bro.
Same thing with crawfish in New Orleans.
Yes.
Same thing with crawfish in New Orleans.
Yeah.
And see what I'm saying? So
I take that stance. Like, I know it's shocking to, it could be shocking to you to hear me say that. I'm like, I honestly think when I think about, diseases and viruses that are coming down the pipeline, that will be coming down the pipeline, and I think it's going to be more deadly. I'm like, it's either you do away with leisure travel or the restrictions for leisure travels need to be much more restrictive.
It's not even leisure travel. It should be international travel. Should be more restrictive.
Yes, international. Yeah. International.
That's just what it is.
It's just that's what it is. Yeah.
And it protects everybody.
It does. Yeah.
It protects us from other people. Protects other people from us.
Yeah.
It's just.
And if you can afford to be out in DR for a month because you quarantining for 2 weeks and then you want to have an additional 2 weeks out there, if you can't afford to do that, then I don't know what to say to that. I know it's going to economically put those economies, those tourist hotspots behind the 8 ball, but like, I don't know. I really don't know.
Or here's the thing. It might put those hotspots, those tourist spots behind the 8 ball. But at the end of the day, like, Kelvin's full of shit when he says, the third world countries. You don't give a fuck about third world countries, bro. You care about a good deal. That's all you give a fuck about. You're not saying, let me support these third world countries. So miss me with that bullshit.
Yeah, you're caring about a good deal and exploitation of vulnerable
of those people. Exactly, which is exactly what I said. You're exploiting those people. You are not like looking out for those people. So miss me with that bullshit.
Right? It is like, let's be honest.
Look at Haiti. Haiti's a third world country. Are you trying to say, we need to go visit Haiti?
Bruh, I ain't never in my entire life hear people say,
doing that.
Yeah, like let's vacation in Haiti. I've never unless you're Haitian, I've never heard anyone outside of being Haitian saying let's go to Haiti. So
exactly.
I complete that's some full of shit. Like, come on, man.
I hate when people try to use these.
You trying to satisfy your special friend down there, bro.
Yeah.
Let's be.
Hey, you trying to sell me on? Come on, bro. Come on. Like, seriously, I'm not. I was born at night, not last night. Stop it.
And to be honest, I think that should be a reason for countries to really shape up. Like, it's not like we could stop assisting those countries too. Like, we could always send foreign aid, But like you said, that will be more controlled in regards of who's going out there and what's going out there.
And what's coming back home.
Versus to, I'm fucking in, whatever fucking international foreign hotspot, and there's no tracking where I'm at, what I'm doing. Granted, you signed that little slip on the card, but like, come on, man. Like, you could you could lie on that shit.
All day, every day.
All day, every day. Where have you been? I've been in, the resort.
I stayed at the resort the whole time.
Lies, bullshit.
Like, bull fucking shit. Bull fucking shit, homie. Like, miss me with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And even if you stayed at the resort, like we said, you might be over there, you got bitten by a beetle or something. You didn't think nothing of it.
Yes.
You want to come home. So you're gonna lie, or you fill out whatever paperwork so you can come home and deal with the problem later. And then that problem becomes the next COVID because you got bitten by a beetle.
Yeah. Even in the gentleman who spent damn near $3 million back in the 18th century doing what he was doing to understand quarantining and understanding the hazardous facilities of quarantine locations.
Mm-hmm.
He even said with the Black Plague, that Black Plague was due to the fact that despite the quarantine efforts, it was something that was within like a carry load that kind of exposed an individual to the disease. So like you said, like being bitten or like your clothes being laid out. Like if you're not washing your clothes coming back or going to, now you're carrying like a bed bug infestation, right?
Yeah.
New York City really didn't have a bed bug infestation, and it wasn't until like these foreigners coming into New York City that these many hot spots in New York City started to have a bed bug infestation.
Yeah. So it's just like, that's the thing, is that people want to put feelings and emotions, and it's just like, let me see you put those feelings and emotions to the forefront when you are in direct harm, when you're in direct danger. It's like, all right, you don't want to, you feel like it's xenophobia, this, that, and the other. All right, then you sleep in those beds.
Yeah.
All right. It's always some fucking, liberal, suburban, middle class, upper class motherfucker that's talking shit that don't have to deal with the problem directly.
Yeah.
They never have to deal with the problem directly. It's like one of my clients who I got nothing but love for. She's a sweet girl and everything. But when she talks all this liberal leftist shit, like, oh well, the way that Jeff Bezos has all this money and he's not helping, blah, blah, blah. It's like, this means the bullshit, okay? This means the bullshit because you have a home, you have a 4-bedroom home in Morristown. I don't see you trying to feed the homeless or letting them come stay with you.
Into your crib, yeah. Like,
come on now.
I always despise those arguments because those arguments are always rooted in not addressing the actual, like, this government collect billions of dollars from taxpayers each year. How the fuck certain basic things are not provided? Let's look at how it's being spent versus the how it's being collected. Or who is it being collected by? But yeah, like my stance regarding quarantining, like when I was reading through this book, I felt like, this was like an epiphany I was having. I was just like, you know what? We probably should either have harsher restrictions around leisure travel or international leisure travel, or just do away with it, and I think that would help mitigate some of the issues that we're seeing now.
I mean, we might get more, hopefully, somebody comes to their senses, because the whole thing is, granted, I get it. And here's the thing, there's going to be a lot of industry infected,
You're right.
especially the airline industry, who makes most of their money off of travel. The credit card companies, all these dumb motherfuckers that are going on, oh, look, y'all, let me put on my Instagram, I'm in Mexico, I'm in, I'm in Dubai, I'm in this, that, and the other, getting yourself into a shit ton of credit card debt in places you can't fucking afford. You know what I mean? Like, that shit will definitely change the economic structure in the United States. Because if you can't go and make yourself broke going abroad, because now you have to stay within the States, one, the airline companies can't charge you the stupid amount of rates that they are charging you to
These are
fly
facts.
to these other lands, this, that, and the other. 2, you're probably not going to get yourself into deeper debt, which is actually a better thing. 3 is the fact of it incentivizes people to create tourist spots within the United States in places where you may never have had a tourist spot. You know, because we have a Disneyland in Florida, Disneyland in Florida, Disneyland in
California, I think.
California and Disney World in Florida. You know, we have a Six Flags over here, or Busch Gardens over there. Like, you'll be more incentivized to create more of that industry within the United States, which will create more jobs, which will, you know, change the landscape for everyone.
Yeah,
it'll change the landscape for everybody, you know, economically and societally. And the whole thing is, it's crazy to me because, like, I have a client from Netherlands, I have clients from Australia, I have clients from Russia. All these motherfuckers know more about their country than the average American knows about theirs.
Yeah.
They'll tell you history, they'll tell you facts, they'll tell you this, that, and the other, and they take pride in that shit too. Americans swear they're so full of pride of being American, but don't know shit about America.
Yeah, and wouldn't even want, like, when I hear people talk about, I'm like, I'm not gonna lie, man, that Arizona trip ranks probably in the top 3 of best trips I've ever had. That's how awesome that trip was for me. And I was just, and my wife and I, we was sitting back, we was just like, yo, America is a massive piece of land. Like, there's, like, how is it that I can't enjoy the luxuries of what I within America that I would enjoy somewhere else? I'm like, I'm pretty sure that I could do what, like you said, I could do what I would typically would probably have done internationally here in America. And for the most part, it is rooted in that one thing: exploitation of people, exploitation of young girls who are probably underage, exploitation of, you know,
of the land. Like, all the people that work at those resorts are working for pennies on the dollar.
Yeah.
Pennies on the dollar in comparison to, so, like, I've been to some of these hotels. I've been to Dominican Republic. I've seen these hotels. I've been to the Mexico. I've been to these hotels. And I'm just like, yo, for the money that you're spending, I get it. A Marriott in New York is going to be a lot more expensive. But a Marriott in Ohio, a Marriott in Wisconsin, you know what I mean? Like, probably won't be as expensive.
Yeah.
You know, probably.
And if those places are too cool and dreary for you, there's so many other spots that you could find within America to enjoy that. Like,
but once again, the money can be created there because the fact of, so for instance, one of the things I hear, one of the biggest problems about, like, overpopulation in places like New York. Well, that's only because that's where the jobs are. Like, look at Audible. They built in Newark. Why did you build in Wisconsin? Why did you build in I don't know, Ohio or some random Midwest country? Then people will move and spread out instead of be on top of each other like they are in New York.
Yes.
People are wherever the jobs are. Make more incentives for companies like Amazon and so forth and so on to build in rural areas where they'll, provide more jobs and give more incentive for people to move out there, and we won't be so fucking overpopulated.
Yeah. And that will curtail the not, the diseases and viruses that tend to happen in these densely populated towns. This is why places like North Dakota really wasn't impacted by COVID whatsoever. Matter of fact, because their population was so small and people don't visit fucking North Dakota like that.
Exactly.
They never really shut down, but with reason.
Yes. Exactly, with reason. That's why I'm saying the fact of these are uncontrollable variables.
Yeah.
But the whole thing is, it's just simple, because if you have to explain to people, well, there's less people over in Dakota, there's more people in New York, this, that, and the other, some people might be dumb and be like, well, we're going to go to North Dakota, even if we're infected or something. You know what I mean? Like, who knows? Who knows?
Yeah.
People are stupid. At the end of the day, people are stupid. But the reality is that we're not investing enough in our own country to develop it. Like, we got all of this land.
Yeah.
All of this land, all of this wealth, and yet we're not developing any of it. It's stupid.
Yeah.
It's so